We will talk about today the differentiated cells and maintenance of tissue. This topic plays a significant role if you talk about the whole development biology, whether you're talking about the animal cells and particularly the plant cells. Because if you go through the process of the biology, once the cell is there, obviously it have to be divided, and after the division of the cells, and it goes through the different process in which that it makes its identity in the natural organisms. Similarly, when we talk about the patterns of eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells, this topic plays a wide central role in the maintenance of the cells. And if you talk about the cells and tissue, cells is the, as you know, that is basic things, that is structural and functional unit of life, because this is the assembly. Cells makes the assembly in the whole tissue, and all tissues makes its whole organisms. So first of all, we will focus the significant role of this topic in development biology, because this is the part of principle of cell and development biology. So it should very clear what is the significance of this topic in principle of cell and development biology, because differentiated cells and maintenance of tissue we will go through. So definitely one term immediately rise, what are the different micromolecules and macromolecules that play a significant role in the organizations of the whole genome. Whether we talk about the biological process which takes place in intracellular level, what is the roles of lipids, what is the role of obviously if we are talking about the biological catalyst in the form of enzymes, because all enzymes are the proteins. So we should also mention it the form of, particularly the form of proteins in the form of amino acids. They functionals to maintain its vital role in the cellular organization. Similarly, if we go through the DNA and gene, obviously this is the, you can better say, the backbone materials in which it makes its unique identity of the cells. Unique identity in the cells means, that means as you know, there is the great diversity in the nature. Definitely there should be microorganisms, there should be plant cells, there should be animal cells, and this is the mixed community if we are talking about, in which it's make an association between the different type of the microorganisms and the living cells and the dead cells also. That is, it makes the DNA, because DNA is the hereditary materials of any cells, because if DNA makes its own proteins, that means in which way it have to be identified. So these are the basic factors, as you can see in the blackboard: lipids, enzymes, gene, DNA, and obviously if you talk about the hormones, because topic is differentiated cells and maintenance of the tissue, so we should also focus the role of hormones, whether we are talking about the animal cells and the plant cells. Likewise, if you go through the differentiation between the animals, differentiation between the plants, this is very important thing to understand, because if you go through the differentiated cells and maintenance of tissue, this is very necessary component to understand the where life history begins from the, we are talking about the, if any plant and any cells. When we are talking about the any cell, plant cell or the animal cells, life history is the basic thing in which the life begins of the particular cells. So vice versa, if we talk about the differentiated cells, because this is the very common process, this is very common process that actually occurs in the both types of the cells, whether talking about the animal cells, whether talking about the plant cells, because a cell has to be differentiated. A cells is specific types of the cells occurs, and it depends upon the functional role of the specific cells of the any organisms, whether you are talking about. So if you similarly, if you go through the plant cells, so the one stage occurs in which a plant cells is differentiated to the different pattern, like the parenchymatous cells, sclerenchymatous cells, collenchymatous cells. If we go through the transverse actions of any plant cells, then we easily visualize in our laboratories the particular structures of this tissue, and these tissue, where is the genesis of the various tissues? The question rises here that we have to understand from where is what is the stages of that particular process. That means these process occurs. So because it plays a very significant role in development biology. A cell, if you are talking about the stem cells, if any cells, there is the process. If we go through any neuron cells and the animal cells, there is the process if one particular cell is going to the differentiated the specific cells. For example, of the neural cells, there is the specific media and supplementation process. There is the process in directed differentiation process. If a particular cells is differentiated to the neural cells, and this same process occurs in the rest of the cells. If we were talking about the muscle cells, if you're talking about the blood cells formation, fibroblast cell formations, and like other process. So this is the main thing you have to understand. What is the process of the differentiation in animal cells and the plant cells. If you go through, this is the biochemical basis of cell differentiation, is the synthesis of the cell of a particular set of proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, and this synthesis is catalyzed of proteins, and each enzyme in turn is synthesis in accordance with a particular gene. Because gene is that the thing, you can say, that is identity materials. You can say this is the keys of the particular process. Without information, without the permission of the particular set of the base pairs, there is not possible to occurring any happenings of the any cells. This is the main thing. And if you go through, there is the tissue and tissue with permanent cells, and in cellular biology, stable cells are cells that multiply when needed, and particularly how the cell divides. This is the more important thing, because whenever a cell divides in by means of the process of mitosis, the number of cells increases, mass increases, and obviously growth increases. And after the stages that come, the cells have become mature, and after the maturation stages, then cell again going through the different division in the form of multiplication of its particularly genome. That is, the process is called meiosis. That will always occur in the sex cells. You can better say this occurs in the our germ cells. So process, how this process maintained in form of, if you're talking about the plant cells, whether we were talking about the, and particularly what are the factors that are responsible for this maintenance. If you go through the plant cells, there are a lot of examples. There is the different tissues. If you go through the simple tissues, compound tissues, complex tissues, particularly if you're talking about the compound tissues, simple tissues, definitely we will not forget the significant and the key roles of the xylem and the phloems that is responsible for the transduction of the water and minerals to the different part of the cells. If we talk about the particularly in the plant cells, there is a unique assembly, there is a unique process. That means all things happens in cellular organization, in which the differentiation is the maintenance. These are the interrelated term that is also responsible for the biological process of the particular cells, whether you are talking about the animal cells, whether you are talking about the plant cells. And besides the xylem and the phloems, and some more important things, that what is the renewal of cells by the simple duplication, that is also the important process. Most of the differentiated cells population in a vertebrates are not permanent. The cells are continually dying and being replaced. New differentiated cells can be produced during adult in either of the two ways. Firstly, they can form by the simple duplication, which divide to give parts of the daughter cells, and secondly, they can generate relatively undifferentiated stem cells by the process of to maintain the cell phenotypes, because cell duplication and the renewal of the cell, this is very natural and the basic process, because the maintenance of the cells depends upon the two processes, whether these are the process going on the duplication and similarly undifferentiated cells by the process that involves the change of the phenotypes. And if you go through the plant cells, the pluripotent process, totipotency is the process which occurs in the plant cells. That is important part for the maintenance of the cells and tissues. And likewise, if you're talking about the differentiation and maintenance of the cells, and this is one again example of the some fibroblast cells. These fibroblast cells is a type of cells that synthesize the extracellular matrix and collagen, the structural framework, stroma for the animal cells, because this is a unique machinery actually. Whether we are talking about any gene, because gene is responsible for the particular identity of the cells, and this process occurs in the cells by means of the linear process, because whenever we go through a DNA converts its messenger RNA, and this messenger RNA converts its protein by the process of translation, and the DNA is convert its particularly messenger RNA by the process is called the transcription, because that is very coded language in the natural process which occurs in cytoplasm and the nucleus. And particularly if you go through the significance of this process, because this is interrelated to this process, because a set of gene is responsible for the triggering of any information whether it required to the cells timely. If you go through any cells, because cell division and the cell duplication, cell renewal, and finally the maintenance of the cells, these are interrelated topics, because this is interrelated term which interrelates in different points, that plays a significant role in maintenance of the whole genome. And one more example of again, that is transformation of fibroblast, and particularly the significant role of connective tissue cell family, because if you go through the connective tissues, that is also the part of our renewal process of the cells. Connective tissue, whenever a tissue is always replaced by means of the process, because it depends upon the injury, because so many times if you go through, either we go through any plant cells or animal cells, there is a particular injury in which the cells is always replaced by means of the process, and immediately there is a replacement process in cells for the formation of natural process, and again it is followed by the cell division and new cells have become, because this is an important thing, because if replacement or renewal is not going on, then definitely the cells will go through its decline stage, and immediately it depends upon the slow physiological functions of any cells, because this is very natural and very essential process of the cells, whether you are talking about the renewal, whether you are talking about the duplication of the cells, and whether you are talking about the any pluripotency, any totipotency, or whether. And one more things I just wish to add, because stem cells therapy at present, if you go through the stem cells therapy, it is very new and very advanced technology if you are talking about the present scenario of the biotechnology, and you can several times you can see the different articles and the latest information about journals, about the newspaper and the journals about the stem cells therapy, because stem cells therapy is the process in which we can change any cells organ, any desired process by means of displacement of duplication cells. So again, if you talk about these 10 points, that is very important for the differentiated cells, and maintenance of the tissue, lipids, enzymes, genes, and if you concentrate the fifth point, this again differentiate between the plant cells and the animal cells. So conclusively, if you go through the differentiated cells and maintenance of the tissue, because this is the important process, and I'm again emphasizing to concentrate these things because these are the interrelated term. So today you are able to I just highlight the significant highlights of this topic by applying these 10 points. What is the role of these differentiated cells and maintenance of the tissue, and rest things we will again assemble with the new topics. Thank you.